A key military-industrial site in the Russian city of Taganrog linked to Moscow's production of combat drones and electronic warfare systems was damaged overnight, a Ukrainian official said, amid Russian reports of Ukrainian drones targeting the area. Something unknown flew into the Atlantaero plant in Taganrog, Andriy Kovalenko, head of the Counter-Disinformation Center at Ukraine's National Security and Defense Council said. This is an important node in the Russian military-industrial complex, specializing in components for combat drones and control systems. Kovalenko said the plant is involved in the production of Orion drones, electronic warfare complexes, and digital integration systems for strike FPV drones and loitering munitions. Russian authorities reported a wave of overnight Ukrainian drone attacks across multiple regions, including Rostov, which borders eastern Ukraine. Russia's defense ministry said its forces shot down 40 Ukrainian drones over several areas, including the Crimean Peninsula and 7 over the Rostov region. Rostov Governor Yuri Slyuser said on Telegram that while there were no casualties, the strikes allegedly caused a fire at a sports complex and damaged a high school and 2 residential buildings in Taganrog. In nearby Azov, a grain warehouse and industrial facility were hit, he added, without providing further detail. Throughout Russia's full-scale invasion, Ukraine and Russia have extensively invested in drone technology, revolutionizing the way wars are fought. Ukraine has ramped up its domestic drone production and long-range strike capabilities as it seeks to weaken Russian military infrastructure deep behind enemy lines. Earlier in June, Ukrainian drones targeted long-range Russian bombers in an operation dubbed Spiderweb.
Да.
Вот.
Вон, блядь.
Serious discontent has begun within the inner circle of Russian President Vladimir Putin. This is due to the worsening economic situation in the country. Russian oligarchs are deeply dissatisfied with the Kremlin leadership due to the decline in their income. Recall at the St. Petersburg International Economic Forum, which took place from June the 18th to the 21st. Officials from various Russian government agencies assessed the economic situation in the country. Most of the comments were cautious, since experts avoid outspoken assessments. However, as economist Ivan Us said on the Freedom TV channel, the country is seeing a decline in production rates, including in the military industry. During the forum, the Russian Minister of Economy stated that the country is on the verge of an economic downturn. He did not confirm but admitted that a recession is near. By the way, many analytical structures that are far from oppositional are talking about this. The very same Center for Macroeconomic Analysis and Short-Term Forecasts, which is headed by the brother of the Russian Defense Minister Belousov, has been writing in its reports for several months now that, most likely, there will be a recession in Russia this year, that is, a decline in production. This is a structure close to the government, and it does not provide all the figures. But if you dig into the figures in more detail, it turns out that the decline in production that is present covers the economy as a whole, but at the same time there is even a small decline in the military-industrial complex. Us said, according to the expert, open reports do not provide a complete picture, but if you delve into the figures, it becomes clear that the decline in production covers almost all industries, including defense. However, the most significant decline in production is observed in the economy that is not related to the military-industrial complex. It's like inflation. That is, when they calculate inflation in Russia, they say that it is around 10%. But if you remove from the inflation indicator the growth in the cost of cars, televisions, computers, that is, all equipment, and leave only food, then inflation will be 20% or even more. People do not buy televisions and cars every day. They buy food. For them, the inflation that they face every day is more important. Therefore, now the Russian economy is already entering a recession. It is beginning to feel it more and more, he explained. He compared the situation to the manipulation of inflation statistics. If you ignore technology and focus on products, the indicator will be much higher. By analogy with the economy, the population already feels the deterioration, and this is only getting worse. They can't say it directly, but they hint at it clearly, saying that in the current situation, it is very difficult not to fall into a deep crisis. Something needs to be changed from what is happening now, that the Russian Federation is pushing into this very abyss of economic crisis. So far, they are almost saying, stop the war in Ukraine. But, based on the growth of such statements, I do not rule out that in the near future, they will speak more boldly about the fact that if we do not stop the war in Ukraine, then Russia will have a huge crisis, and then it is unknown whether it will emerge from this crisis in its current form, he summed up. On June the 21st, the Russian occupiers in Sumy region had a black day. This was reported by the Z Resource Northern Channel associated with the Russian Armed Forces. Dialogue.ua reports. And now a little more detail about what is happening in the Sumy direction. A black day for the Marines. In Miropolye, the 810th Brigade came under fire. Many were killed and about a platoon was captured, Z Channel reported. In addition, according to his data, the Ukrainian Defense Forces pushed back the 155th Brigade of the Russian Armed Forces from Andriivka. The village is again completely under the control of the Ukrainian Armed Forces. The occupiers are also having problems in Yunakovka. The offensive there has been stopped. Russian troops are no longer thinking about how to move forward, but are feverishly trying to hold on to the positions they have already captured. Northern Channel also complained about the heavy losses of the Russian armed forces in the Tetkino area in the Kursk region. The unmanned units and aviation of the defense forces are working very effectively. Near Tetkino, the commanders are driving the 1427th Motorized Rifle Regiment of the Russian Armed Forces from Glushkovo along the railroad to the treatment facilities, but first solve the problem with the drones. So many people have already been killed for nothing, and also how tired they are of aviation. They fly like Jews in Iran. They are not afraid of anything, and their accuracy has increased, reported Z Channel. The Russian armed forces continue to shell the border areas of the Sumy region using a variety of weapons, including aviation. However, according to the latest data, there is a decrease in the activity of small assault groups attempting to break deeper into the territory. This was reported by the spokesperson of the State Border Guard Service of Ukraine, Andriy Demchenko. Enemy attacks are targeted both at the positions of Ukrainian military forces and at populated areas, causing significant infrastructure damage and civilian casualties. The enemy actively uses various types of weapons, including aviation, employing guided bombs and unguided rockets, Andriy Demchenko said. Demchenko noted that the situation in the Yunakivska and Kotinska communities remains difficult. Russian troops continue the tactic of using small assault groups, although their activity has recently decreased. This is the result of the efforts of the defense forces, particularly the border guards and the armed forces of Ukraine, he emphasized. Due to heavy losses, Russia has also reduced the use of motorized vehicles, including quad bikes, which were previously actively used for rapid attacks. Armored vehicles are not used in this combat zone, as the Russian Federation is aware of their inevitable loss, Andriy Demchenko said.